Hey, this episode is going to be another tool review, this time the inexpensive spray gun from Harbor Freight Tools. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. Tool review. So the inexpensive paint gun, I want to review this thing. I've actually owned it a while and just haven't had a chance to use it. I do have an opportunity to use it, so I wanted to run through the thing with you. This will be my absolute first, this is fresh out of the box experience with one of these guns, and so complete novice here, except that I do have a lot of experience working with painting. As you can see, I am capable of getting a good result even with rattle can paints like here on my Cafe Racer gas tank. But I do want to step up my game a little bit, and I thought, let's dip your toe in the pool here, Urban, and we'll start at the low end of the cost spectrum and just see what we can do. I don't have an automotive or motorcycle application here today, but I've got something I can spray. It's a home project. It's an armoire that I want to change the color of. So let's dive into what comes out of the box with the gun. So when you purchase the gun, you get the gun, you get a cleaning brush, and you get the cup, or the reservoir for the paint. That's pretty much it, and some good cleaning instructions, and I would say quite good service instructions too. So the instructions are pretty clear that the absolute first thing you need to do when you get this out of the box is to take out this needle assembly. There's just that knob, a spring here, and this needle, which is obviously very stuck with some kind of a, there we go, some sort of a protective coating on it that clearly they want you to remove. So I'm going to clean this with acetone, or you could use mineral spirits is what they recommend. I can't get mineral spirits in the state of California, so I'm using acetone. Acetone. I can see that protective coating come off of there. Whoop. Just a 19mm wrench to snug the cup up on there. And you'll want to have that wrench around for after when you have to take the gun apart to clean it. Now the other thing I'm going to do before I use it, of course it does not come with a nipple for the air fitting, so you'll have to get one of those. You can buy it at Harbor Freight when you buy the gun. And you can also buy an airline dryer. A good idea to have a dryer at the gun. And I also have one at the compressor. So one thing I'm noticing as I try to put these pieces together, the thread pitch on this NPT thread is an SAE 20. The threads that came on this fitting for the airline on the gun are 20, but they're so flat at their peak that they don't thread very well. I mean, I can barely get this on. Now, it may not matter when I put Teflon tape on there, but it's a little chintzy. Unless the intention there is that this thicker, flatter peaked thread is a better seal, maybe that's their intention, and I'm just ignorant here, but there's clearly a difference in those two threads, not in the pitch, but just in the peaks. These are a little bit sharper at the top. and you know, things thread on there a lot more easily. So, noted that. So I've got my dryer on here. The other option that a lot of guys will go with is to have a regulator on the air supply line right at the gun. I'm not going to do that. I do have a regulator on the air compressor, and I will be setting that at about 60 psi, which is 10 under the maximum rating for this gun according to the instructions. And then I'm just going to use the air regulator knob on the gun to adjust from there. Just a few words on the air compressor because it matters. This one is adequate, but a little on the small side for the job. You should be able to do over 6 cubic feet per minute. At 40 psi, I'm 6.9. 13-gallon tank is rated for this gun for intermittent use, so you know, I maybe wouldn't do a huge project where I'm spraying a lot with this compressor. So this is the project. Not automotive, but a smooth surface that I've pre-prepped by sanding and cleaning it. Okay, paint. I'm going to be using a primer and oil-based enamel for both. Common brand here, but oil-based paints are what they recommend for the gun. And it says right in the instructions that for a latex paint, you aren't going to get a good result using their gun, which is nice of them to be forward about that. But then what's confusing is they also have a bunch of instructions on how to clean it with latex paint. So they're assuming people are going to put latex through it clearly. There's my regulator pressure setting. And so you can hear I've got a little bit of a leak here, and it's not the gun, and it's not the dryer or the nipple. It's this fitting here on my hose. But it's not going to interfere with my ability to spray. Just feeling the amount of air coming out of here right now. The air regulator knob, if I open it up, I get a lot of air. Tighten it up. I've got it so where I don't know how to describe that. I can feel it, but it's not blasting my hand because I don't want to blast the paint onto the surface. I want to blow it and lay it. So I'm going to try that. I've also got this set for a pattern that runs vertically. You can loosen this up and turn this if you want a horizontal pattern. I want the vertical. So the first thing I want to do is check my spray pattern. Using about this distance from my material, I'm just using some cardboard here. All I've got in the cup is acetone. I want about this distance to be about this wide. And I can adjust. That's pretty good. So I think that's my setting for now. So starting first with my primer, I gotta stir this up first. I'm scraping the bottom to see if there's like a stiff layer down there. If this has sat on the shelf for a long time, you'll feel it. This does not, so I'm not gonna have to stir this too long. But alternatively, you can grab this off the shelf at your hardware store or paint store and just hand it to the guy and have him shake it on his machine for a few minutes before you buy it, if you're going to go home and paint right away that day. This has sat around here for a few days, so now that I've got the paint stirred, I am going to mix in my acetone 15%. So for me that's 1.5 fluid ounces to 8.5 ounces of paint, making a total of 10 ounces. It's working pretty well with the primer. It flattens out nicely. Okay, I like it. This piece is a little bit difficult to work with, but that's the piece. Let me get in and talk a little bit more about the gun. I just put it in my vise to store it here. So, not going over a half hour between coats, which in this weather with this paint I can do maybe 15-20 minutes between coats on this primer, and that's you know, a short enough period of time where I can leave the paint in the gun and in the cup. But if you're going to go over 30 minutes, they recommend that you clean it out with acetone or paint thinner, mineral spirits. And so here is the finish. You know, again, this is primer and it's first coat. I'm going on thin because what I don't want is, there's some under the light. You know, if it was an automotive application, I got some dust flying out here. That's what I get for painting outside. If it was an automotive application, perhaps I wouldn't be thrilled with this, but then again, there is wet sanding and buffing and polishing and rubbing compound and all of those things a guy can do. Cleanup was not too bad. I probably spent 10 minutes with acetone. You could use mineral spirits. In fact, they recommend you do. But again, I can't get that in California. And I went ahead and bought this set of small brushes that are in, well, this came with the gun, but this set is worth an extra couple of bucks to get in the tiny little holes of this tip, this nozzle. And you know, 10 minutes of cleanup is well worth it to me if I'm getting a good result and not spending a bunch of money on throwaway rattle cans, which I certainly have done a lot of. I guess it depends. If you've got a big project, then this makes a lot of sense, I think. Maybe with motorcycle, it might be a little bit harder for me to justify over the rattle cans because of the cleanup time. But with the gun, I can put 2-part paints into this, and 2-part paints is a little more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult with aerosol cans. So this opens up a lot of possibilities for me, and for $16, and then of course there's coupons, looking forward to using this on the next automotive or motorcycle project. Here's another little tip I'll offer. When you're not using your respirator, put it back in the Ziploc bag that it came in and zip it tight. The activated charcoal inside those filters, if you leave it out, will absorb pollutants from the air just sitting on the shelf, and then when you actually need it to work when you're painting, then it doesn't do its job. So the function will last longer if you keep it in the Ziploc bag. Okay, so now I'm on the next day after I've let the primer dry, and I've gone back to the same gun that I cleaned up at the end of my painting with the primer yesterday, and have attempted to use it with my color, and it's gummed up. And you know, I had the nozzle was clean yesterday, but I think my mistake was not removing the cup and getting down into the gun there. So I've been spraying acetone through it, but I'm using a lot of acetone. And it is spraying again, but I'm not getting the best pattern and struggling to adjust it. And that may be because I've clogged the inside of it. So we'll see. Running a lot of acetone through has improved things, and I think as I use it here now, it will get better. Pretty good. Okay, so what will I say about this thing? I don't know how well my camera is picking up. I'm trying to get the sunlight here for you. The way this particular paint is laying down, it's pretty nice. Would I want to use this for an automotive application? Well, yes, if I was planning on wet sanding. If I was using the kind of paint that you can wet sand, then I'd be able to smooth that surface out and use rubbing compound and then polishing compound and then you know, an automotive wax, and I think I'd get a fantastic finish out of it. I have to do that with the rattle can paints that I use anyways. So then the question would be just, am I using a two-part paint that will allow the wet sanding process? That's all I'll comment on automotive, because clearly I'm not using it for an automotive application right now. For this, I don't care if there's a little bit of a texture to it. What else can I say about the gun? It did clean up pretty good after I ran acetone through it, so cleanup is a chore and you really have to be diligent with it. I'm sure all spray guns are that way, so I don't think that's necessarily unique to this one. For $16 and even less with a coupon, I think I got to give it a thumbs up. It's giving me results as good as any rattle can I've ever used, but with economy and you know, the ability to just keep using that gun over and over with whatever paint I choose. I like it, you know. It's not something I would use if I was a professional, but I'm not. I just want a professional result myself. Hey, if you like what I'm doing, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to become an urban monk. Thanks for watching.